Call or text 405-451-3399.
These two guys have Oklahoma roots planted deep.
Oh, is this a new one? I thought it was a rerun. Okay, here we go.
One from the plains of Kay County, and the other is straight out of the backwoods of McCurtain County. Get ready for the latest sports takes, plus a view inside the world of music, food, and pop culture.
We'll begin at this point.
The Middle of the Day Show with Mark Rodgers and Brad Copeland, now on 98.1 FM, WWLS, the sports animal. Now it's time for the Big Three, sponsored by Service Master by Eagle Eye, carpet and air duct cleaning, water and fire restoration, and more. Call 405-216-8000 or visit smbyee.com.
All right.
Middle of the Day Show. Cisco here at SEC Media Days. Mark's wrapping up a very important phone call. What's up, Brad? How are you?
Is he on the phone with Denzel Washington?
No, actually somebody a little bit bigger.
Oh,
probably.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reveal the source of who he was talking to, but it was a very important phone call. So
I saw a story that Lenny Kravitz stopped mid-concert in Italy to take a FaceTime from Denzel Washington the other night.
It wasn't Denzel. It was the King, though. So when the King calls,
Okay.
you got to pick up the phone. We taped a little bit of interview with the College Football Hall of Fame director Matthew Sine, talking about coming to Oklahoma for the Dewey Selman statue or the Dewey Selman induction into the College Football Hall of Fame. Let me get that straight. So Coach and Matthew are good buddies. Looking forward to that. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Like I told Matt last hour, I'm loving this drop in temperatures.
That's nice. I can't really tell you that we've felt the drop in temperatures because we've been indoor the entire time. I'll tell you this, 4 days of media days is about the limit for me. Like if we had one more day, I think I could probably make it through it, but 6 would be overdoing it.
Is it just the amount of time that it makes the week have overall? Because in order to not have 4 with 16 teams, you're going to have a couple of days with 6 and then one with 4. They're going to have to divide it up like that. So you're going to spend the same amount of time. It's just going to be over fewer days.
Yeah, I think that this the way that this is set up helps ESPN do multiple things. One is it creates a lot of content for them in a slow time of the year across multiple platforms, radio, SEC Network, 1 and 2. It also allows them to record and put promos in the can for different games that they're going to have and ask questions and do asides and things like that they keep and will run during football season that you think could tape the week of the game and they're not. So it's tough to work around that, but schools have been very accommodating. And I think that there is a little novelty to Oklahoma and Texas coming into the league. So people want to stop by and say hi. So Coach was making sure that that I was going to be on the travel roster for the Ole Miss game. He said that we'll be taking a bus from Memphis and going down to the Grove with Archie Manning. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty big time.
That's big time.
So you're going to be on the travel roster?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. You ought to make that happen.
To mess up between now and then.
Did you submit your Did you submit your time off for that day?
Your boss and I have had a conversation of that. I'm going to be going to those places, so we got to make sure we hold him accountable. Yeah, my time off. I need to submit that for those Fridays.
Now, is the SEC
Friday? Just not be here.
Is the SEC media tour? Is it going to be rotational now? Is it going to go back to Atlanta? Is it going to mix in Nashville, maybe New Orleans? Like, what's the plan with this? It's not going to be in Dallas every year or for the next several years, is it? This was a one-time deal because of OU and Texas coming into the league, or not a one-time deal, but an exception because of this being their inaugural year.
They made the announcement with Commissioner Sankey at the podium on Monday that they're going to Atlanta next year, and they'll be doing it at the College Football Hall of Fame, which I've been there. Right inside the it's located right inside the Mercedes-Benz Dome Stadium. Yeah. It's really, really cool. So that's where it will be taking place next year. Okay. And then I think it probably moves again. And I would have rather probably gone to Nashville next year, Who knows? I don't know that Oklahoma City's on the rotation.
Yeah, I'm guessing not. And I know that you're a big South Broadway fan of Nashville, so you want to be on those party buses. So you'll look forward to the year that it's in Nashville.
I like Vanderbilt. I like that area a little bit more than I like Broadway.
Broadway's too much for me, man. I can't handle it.
When I was in Vegas last week, I walked by the new Blake Shelton bar, Old Red there.
It's right on the Strip.
Yeah, it has the Nashville feel.
I stayed.
Vegas.
Where did I stay last time I was there? And it was
Link?
Harrah's. I stayed at Harrah's, and it was right across the street from Harrah's.
Yeah, it looked cool. I
Or
didn't
down the
have
street
a
from
I didn't
Harrah's.
have a chance to go in there and hang. So
It looks nice from the outside. I didn't go in there either. I just drove past it several times.
now I have been into the Tishomingo version of that before.
I'm guessing that the Vegas version probably a little more high end than the Tishomingo version.
I think the Tishomingo version has a little bit of a downstairs. It is not multiple levels as the Vegas.
Now, have you been to Reba's place yet?
Been by it, not been inside of it.
I haven't either, and I've read a couple of different things that have rated the chicken fried steak at Reba's place the best chicken fried steak in Oklahoma.
We have a mutual friend that I've discussed this with. We actually have two mutual friends that I've discussed that with, and they both said that it was less than that.
Okay.
Babe's Chicken House has a pretty decent chicken fried steak that would be on the way home, but I have eaten like a Viking when he lands in the new world down here. It's not good. Been doing a good job managing my diet, but
you've been on that program, which is
Mexican
kind of like being in
food.
prison. So you're getting out and busting loose.
Yeah. Oh, and we made it count down here with the restaurants that we ate at. It was pretty good. I've chronicled that on my social media. At least two of the meals that were good. So they've got today for the free meal here. They have fajitas, and they have vegetable enchiladas, which are two words that should not ever be bumped up next to each other.
I agree with that.
You want some numbers? I got some numbers for you here. You want some SEC numbers?
Sure.
Going back to 1976, all right, the SEC has been a 10-team league for most of the time, then 12, then 14, now 16. But only 6 teams won a conference championship going back that far. And really only 5. You could say 5 to 76 when Kentucky tied for it. It's the only time. Bama, Auburn, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, and LSU. And in the last 10 years, Bama and Georgia have won 9 of the 10.
Wow.
LSU is the one that won the other one.
That was that outlier Joe Burrow season.
Yeah, it's a great question that we've talked about down here. How many titles can you expect Oklahoma to have, who is used to winning conference championships on the reg, and how many titles will they play for during that span of time? But, man, Georgia Tech won the SEC in 1952. I mean, we all know Georgia Tech is now in the ACC. They're not in the SEC. Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Arkansas, A&M, and Missouri, they've never won an SEC championship. None of those schools. So,
I was thinking about this the other day when we had this conversation about how many times is OU going to play and how many titles will they win. I think we talked about Texas under those same terms as well. And I thought about after the fact that I don't know that we know for sure that this is going to be the format all the way through, right? This was put in this year because Oklahoma and Texas were coming in a year early. Don't we not know for sure that they might not go to a pod system, that they might change the structure of the way the conference schedule is played? So that's going to affect how you handicap that to an extent as well.
I think it's an interesting question because they had every opportunity to go to a pod system this year.
Right.
They could have done it in the beginning. I like the way that they scheduled where that they had a system to it where you were going to be guaranteed to play a certain number of teams that were they kind of had a tier of ranking teams, how successful they were. Now, OU ended up with a tougher portion of the schedule than Texas. I don't know if it'll be that way next year, and it's impossible to predict because you can't just say, oh, here's the amount of returning starters that we have. It's
right.
The portal and coaching changes and all kinds of different things that go into it. So I I don't know if that affects things or not. I mean, I think this is the tiebreaker, which they're going to announce in a couple of weeks, is absolutely will be in effect. I mean, I don't think there's any way in a 16-team conference that has this much strength at the top that you don't have to go to some kind of a tiebreaker and probably pretty deep into the tiebreaker to figure out who's going to be in the championship game.
Well, and as we talked about the other day also with the SEC, I mean, I think that Georgia, we were talking primarily about coaching, but I think Georgia as a team, at least for right now, is going to be talked about and considered top of the heap, as I think that they probably should be. But you got a new coach at Alabama. You've got 2 new teams coming into the conference. You got a bunch of new coaches across the board. So all that's going to factor into it as well. I mean, this is such a year of transition for the SEC that it's really hard to know or have a confident opinion outside of that Georgia's going to be good, how things are going to be. Alabama ought to be good. I think Jalen Milroe is great. And I think Kellen DeBoer is a great coach. But is that going to gel in year 1 for him? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
They've been too good for too long, and they're the champs. They're the defending champs.
Right.
And he's what could cause it to go wrong for him? I know that he's following a legend and maybe the greatest coach ever to do it in college football, but this guy has just won every place that he's ever been to.
Well, one thing that could play into it, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I'm saying that we've seen it happen before. And I think he's a different type of coach than we typically see replace a legend. But there's always that factor. And what the solidity of the fans are going to be if they hit a rough patch. You know, do the fans immediately go to, well, I knew this was going to happen when Coach Saban left, or do they stand by their guy? There's just no way to predict that. I mean, Alabama fans have been traditionally very, very strong fans, but I lived in Alabama when it was a downtime, and they did not like the coaches that were there at the time, or the coach that was there at the time, and they turned on him pretty quickly. Like I said, this is not Gary Gibbs taking over for Barry Switzer. This is not Frank Solich taking over for Tom Osborne. This is a different kind of coach that has been very successful at a school with way more limited resources. So I think it's a little bit different, but that's a question mark that I have is, do the fans stand by this guy if things get shaky a little bit out of the gate?
I would hope so. I mean, like this early on.
Oh, I would hope so too.
Yeah. But he's from South Dakota. That may be a little bit of an issue. Like, I don't know if you just told Roll Tide Willie that the Nick Saban's replacement is going to be from South Dakota. Or not. I know some people from South Dakota. Josh Heupel's from South Dakota. That doesn't mean that, you know what I'm saying? But South Dakota might as well be Siberia from people in Tuscaloosa or Birmingham.
Or Mars.
Yeah.
Right.
Mars.
And again, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case, but that is a concern that I would have if I were Kellen DeBoer going in there is, are the fans going to trust me with the keys to this car? And I mean, yes, the answer is obviously yes, and you've got a track record to stand on. But if things get shaky, how quickly are they to say, well, we made the wrong decision? I mean, we saw it multiple times in Texas, right? We saw the fan base get fired up that this is the guy. Finally, Charlie Strong is the guy. And then some adversity will bring that crashing down in a hurry. I think Kellen DeBoer is a better coach than that as well. I mean, to me, from the outside looking in, I see no hesitation with this. I think it was the right hire. I think it's the smartest thing they could have done, but I'm also not Roll Tide Willie. And are those guys going to stand by their guy?
Looking through those numbers again of who's winning this conference championship and the fact that Georgia and Alabama have won it 9 of the last 10 years, and we've had a big debate on who's going to be in the game and who could potentially knock off those teams. I'd take those two and give you the field this year.
Would the bet be that those two have to get into the championship game?
No. Just one of the two has to win. I'm talking about who wins the championship. I mean, you got Texas.
Okay.
You got Ole Miss.
Yeah, but I would take those two against the field as well, I think.
All right.
I think it would be – I think it would be – I'm not as sold on Texas as a lot of people are. And I think Texas got a lot going for it, but they also are coming into this conference. They've got a lot of confidence over the year that they had last year, and I don't know if that's completely earned. I tend to lean towards Cale's position in that argument. And so I think if I were going to – if I were going to make that bet, I'd rather be on the Alabama-Georgia side of it than get in the field.
Bag has got some swashbuckler in him. You want any action on that? You take the field, and I take Alabama and Georgia to win the SEC championship this year.
That's a tough one.
I
probably wouldn't take that.
That gives you 14 out of 16 teams.
Yeah, you get Vanderbilt in the deal, even though they're not
Right.
a threat.
Okay, that gives you 13 out of 16 teams.
I mean, I just think Georgia is going to win it, so I don't think I'd take that.
Okay. All right, very interesting. Brad, what's happening back in the OKC today at my favorite place, Bob Moore Ford?
Man, they've got so many great vehicles right now. If you want to go Mach-E Mustang, they've got a great-looking Mach-1 Mustang here on the showroom floor. They've got F-150s, they have Raptors, they have Broncos, they have just everything that you could want. Nearly 430 vehicles to choose from. They've got SUVs and F-150s ready to move, and you could drive off of the lot with a great interest rate and thousands of dollars off and no payments for 90 days. $12,500 off Explorers. 14 grand off Expeditions, 10 grand off Broncos, and no payments for 90 days. And if you want an F-150 truck, $14,000 off. And they have some that have some minor hail damage that you could save even more on. So check them out online at bobmooreford.com. Look over the inventory and then come to the lot. They're ready to make you a deal. At Bob Moore Ford, Southeast 89th and I-35.
We are expecting over the next hour or so Mark Stoops and Ian Fitzsimmons from ESPN. So hopefully we'll be able to get those in and plus other interviews. So stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up from SEC Media Days at the Omni in Dallas.
Sports Animal Studios, powered by the OKC Thunder. Looking to stay connected to all things Thunder youth? Sign your young fan up for the Thunder Rookies Club to gain access to online activities and start earning points for Thunder prizing. Join for free today within the Thunder app or at okcthunder.com/rookies.
Welcome back. It's the middle of the day show from SEC Media Days in Dallas. The British Open leaderboard, I will give you an update now. Way more interesting at who's at the bottom of this leaderboard than who's at the top. Shane Lowry is at the top right now. He's 4 under through 11. Justin Thomas had a great round early this morning, 3 under. Xander Schauffele has it to 3 under through 13. Then there's a bunch of dudes at 2 under. At the bottom of the leaderboard, here, let's just start at 5 over par. Tommy Fleetwood, Bryson DeChambeau, Will Zalatoris at 5 under. Then it continues from there. A guy that I thought would do well this week, Sahith Theegala, 6 over, along with Lucas Glover. Tiger Woods is 6 over through 13. Rory McIlroy, 7 over in the clubhouse. That's T134. Not very good. Wyndham Clark, another one of the top players from the United States, 8 over par through 14. Cam Smith, 8 over par through 12. So the going is difficult on the course right now. Ernie Els been playing well on the senior tour. He is 1 shot out of DFL right now at 11 over. So conditions are rough, and the scores are high.
Where is Scott Scheffler playing?
Scotty
He's tied
Scheffler
for
is
11.
not doing bad. He's
at 1 under.
Yeah.
Yeah, tied for 11th at 1 under.
He's very, very much in the tournament.
That was just a name that jumped out at me that you didn't mention in that list, so that's why I was asking. I thought maybe he wasn't playing, but then I looked it up and saw that he was. Why do you think those guys that are so bankable in the U.S. majors are struggling the way that they are? Is it a particularly challenging course? I know the British Open is always a different style of golf, but that seems particularly heinous that many guys are playing poorly.
It's just different, right? I mean, it's different golf, the link style golf and the wind and the surface, and it's hard to create. I mean, Scheffler's never really had much success in the British Open, and he's tried different methods, played in the Scottish Open last year and didn't play in it this year. So you're trying to figure it out. Our guy, Dinwiddie Borobunsub, is 4 over through 8. I don't know if he's going to be hanging around for the weekend either. He better get.
Well, I'm hoping. I would hope some good luck on a guy with the unfortunate first name of Dimwit.
Well, he's taken action against that by going by David. So I guess I don't know. Well, hopefully we can get some updates from Al when he lands in Thailand on Borobunsub and what he's doing over there on the tour in Southeast Asia. But man, tough going at the British Open. Last major of the year. It seems the golf calendar season, the PGA season, actually starts in October and ends in September. It's weird. You think of really the golf season more in terms of when you have golf season around here, when you can start playing in the spring,
right?
And it would end in the fall, but actually on the tour it begins in the fall. Well, you guys are enjoying the cool weather back there that we have yet to get to enjoy down here. So, any other topics that we need to touch on very quickly here before we get back to serious football?
Well, a couple of things that I have to talk about, and we can go ahead and move these in because we don't know what's going to happen in the next hour. Neither of these have I had a chance to talk to you about, and perhaps you and Cale talked about Skip Bayless yesterday, but I wanted to talk about Skip Bayless leaving his show and what that means for that show and also what it means for Skip. And then the other thing I heard you and Matt Ravis talking about Devontae Adams in the 9 o'clock hour before I came on. I want to talk about that as well. So whichever one of those you want to go with, let's jump into it.
Yeah, the Bayless thing is interesting because they moved that show First Things First, and they moved it to the afternoon. And that show is okay from time to time. It's not bad. But the ratings have gone down since Shannon Sharp left. I don't know or understand that, but Fox is not necessarily have the platform to me to have a show like that that stands on its own. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think part of the reason that they paid Skip the kind of money that they did and brought that show over the way that they did was to try and build that platform. And I don't think that it's really worked. I mean, they have some hosts. I mean, obviously Skip is a known quantity. They have some hosts that get some attention, but it doesn't draw nearly the water that ESPN does. I think that there's a lot to be said for. I've heard people talking about it. I don't watch that show because I'm not a big fan of, if I'm going to watch people heatedly debate something, I want to feel like they believe the side that it is that they're arguing. And I just don't think that those guys are that polar opposite enough to be on the opposite side of every conversation. But the people that I talk to that do watch that show say it's never been the same since Shannon left. The rotating cast of people that they have coming through to argue doesn't build up the consistency. And it's, clearly by the way that thing fell apart, those two had some issues with each other, but maybe that's why it was so compelling to people to watch, and they just have not found that again.
When I've talked to Skip or seen Skip around with Craig, super nice, just really a good dude. And, he's a big deal. I'm a middle ground guy, kind of like to try to find, the middle or a solution to certain things, and realize that there's always, two sides to a story. So the debate and the kind of, want to embarrass somebody by talking about things and having opinions and takes. And I know that's the way society is to a great degree, just not my style. So I will say this, the ESPN has done, I don't want Matt Meyer to seize up here, but Get Up is a really good show. I mean, they have they've got a big budget. Mike Greenberg's got a lot of pull. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of his. I think that they've done a better job of being more well-rounded. Not every show is about Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott now, but I think that it's the contributors that they have to the show. They put together a pretty good team.
Of the opinion shows, I agree. I think that's the best one that's there, and I like it better when Greenberg's not there.
Wow, that's a strong statement for sure. That's more in line.
I don't like I have a thing about his. I don't want to know how much he loves the Jets, right? That's never been a thing for me that I need to know. Like, I assume John Madden was a huge Raiders fan because he was the coach there and he won a Super Bowl there. But when I watched him, I never knew that he had that strong of an opinion about any team. There were players that he liked. That would go on and on about guys that he liked. But I fall more into that category than I fall into needing to know that Greenberg loves the New York Jets and is going to draw down on every single topic that could potentially be related to the Jets.
All right, we have a very special guest. Ian Fitzsimmons was with us here from ESPN, one of the OGs. Has been around forever and ever and ever and ever. How are you doing,
That
Ian?
means I'm old, man. Old and banged up. How are you? Good to see you again.
We're good. Mark Rodgers, Brad Copeland's back in studio
What's up, Brad?
with us today.
Brad couldn't make the trip.
Brad's got other things going on. He's a morning show host, and he's working hard.
Big time.
We're the only two left standing. We had Kale here with us yesterday, and one of our morning guys went home. I don't know what happened. He pulled a labia, I think. He had to go home early. What's OU getting into in the SEC?
Look, I think that any coach will tell you it truly is different. It's a brand of physicality that is just different. When you're swapping paint in the Southeastern Conference, in Week 7, you better have depth because the roster you had in Week 1, Week 2 is not the same. So you got to have a rotation, 7-0 linemen, 8 D linemen to be able to roll out. Because in this conference, having grown up in it, and I've lived all over this country. I was at Ohio State with Herb Street for 4 years, doing a show up there in Columbus, Ohio with him. I was out in Utah in Pac-12 country at the time, and been in the SEC for a long time. Been here in Dallas, Texas with the Big 12 for a long time. And I get asked this question a lot, and it's a good one because it truly starts in the trenches. You go out in the Pac-12, and it was more about speed on the outside. And you got to have a quarterback in any league. I mean, if you ain't got a quarterback, you ain't got a shot. But in the SEC, it's built inside out. And if you look at what Sark did at Texas, and I know that's sacrilegious to even bring that up, right? But He
They were good on the defensive line
look,
last year.
man. I mean, look at that staff. He brought over one of the best offensive line coaches in college football from Alabama with him, and Kyle Flood. You got A.J. Milwee, who is a quarterback guru, coaching quarterbacks. He's got Jeff Banks from Alabama also, right, who's an outstanding recruiter and a great special teams coordinator. So they built that. They got their quarterback, and they built it from the guts out. And then you add the speed. And, Oklahoma, I've heard a lot of people here the last 3 days saying Oklahoma is a 7-win type team. I think they're better than that. I think they're more of a 9-win type team. But the difference in this conference is truly line play. It all starts up front.
Brad, I'll let you go after this real fast. OU, I think, is starting to figure out the NIL, and I think they know what they're up against in the SEC because they did dip into the coffers and pay Dominic Williams, who transferred from TCU and was potentially going to go to Texas, and they need him. They've got some good young defensive linemen that they've recruited, but I don't know about the offensive line. I think that could be a big area of concern for them this year. They've got a couple of NIL players in there, but there's not a whole lot of experience. So I think
look at the number of defensive linemen that the SEC puts in. Just go look at the NFL draft over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And take a look at the D linemen that you're throwing out there and the O linemen that are being drafted. The majority of them come early in the draft from the Southeastern Conference.
Well, we had Deion Walker stop by earlier today. Oh, he doesn't have a player that looks like that.
Yeah,
I mean, they haven't in a long time.
Not very many people do have a player that looks like that, though.
Fair.
But look, hey, I'll give you another example. Like, look, Will Anderson, when he was at Alabama, I mean, that man, he had muscles in his toenails, but he's not the only one. They all look like that. So that's just a. I hate to say it, but it is truly just different. But I think Oklahoma is better than most people outside of Oklahoma are giving them credit for.
Ian, it sounds like you're buying on Texas, that last year was
Hell
not a flash
yes.
in the pan.
Hell yeah.
So that being the case, conversation we were having earlier in the week, and you're talking about your SEC bona fides a minute ago. Who's the second best coach in the SEC after Kirby Smart?
Yeah, I was going to say
Sark?
Kirby's 1, maybe 1B. Is Kirby Smart also. But Sark's up there, man. And that's the other part. You talk to any one of these coaches. I was just talking to Mark Stoops, head coach of Kentucky. We've known him, since he was coming out of Youngstown. And he'll be one of the first to tell you that it's not just the physicality of the SEC, but you're going up against some of the best minds in college football. I mean, go down Kalen DeBoer right now, you could make a case for that guy. Take a look at his win-loss record going back to when he started at Sioux Falls, Fresno. Now, I had him 6 times, Brad, last year. 6. 3 in the regular season, and we had the Pac-12, our crew had the Pac-12 title game, the college football playoff game against Texas, and then the Natty. That man will cut your heart out with a spoon to win a football game, but he'll do it smiling at you. So I said earlier, my point is the second one, that's hard. It really is.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze is a hell of a coach, right?
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer just played for a national championship. I mean, go on down the list. Sark was, toe-to-toe, one play away from beating DeBoer and getting to the national championship. BV, I think, has grown a ton from his first year as a head coach to now. So, and then you bring in Mike Elko. Look what he did at Duke. And by the way, man, how much better is our turkey going to taste?
With A&M Texas?
Yes.
Better.
Oh, yeah.
I
That'd be a lot
mean,
better.
I hate we've lost Bedlam. I pray at some point we get that back. But, I mean, that stings to lose that one, even though we gained the other one back. So, but Brad, to answer your question, good luck trying to figure out who the second best coach is.
Well, you just
articulated
articulated what we said the other day, which was Kirby Smart's at number 1 until proven otherwise, and then you got everybody else. So, and I want to drill down on Kellen DeBoer for just a second. We were talking about him before you came on. The only hesitation that I have, I think it was the right hire. I think it was the smartest hire that they could have made. I think the dude is a tremendous coach. My question is, and I know that you lived in Birmingham and worked in Birmingham. I lived in Alabama and worked in Alabama during some leaner years than when you were even there, because they won a title right around the time you were there. Do the Alabama fans give Kellen DeBoer plenty of slack?
no.
If things get sketchy, do they start having buyer's remorse, and how does that affect the season?
You know the answer to that question, man. That fan base, they're not passionate. They're obsessed. And you have a very vocal minority that, if you don't win every game, fire them. there's zero patience with that fan base. But I think Nick Saban did DeBoer a big favor, whether it was intentional or unintentional, by saying that it's Georgia and Texas playing for the for the SEC championship, not Bama. Because now you have a large faction of that fan base that will also say, well, if Saban says that, we can't make the title game, then okay.
Yeah.
Right. We better win 10, right? But, it gives him a little bit of time. But I'm telling you right now, DeBoer is as intense of a coach leading up to the game, but in the game, I'll give you a story. I had him against Oregon State. 33 degrees and a monsoon and wind. It was miserable. Can we just drop it a degree and give me snow?
It's a great time to be on the sidelines, right?
Oh, dude, it was miserable. Oregon State's ranked like 16th in the country. Washington's ranked 5th in Corvallis. That in between third and fourth quarter interview is DeBoer with me. 3-point game. Walks up. Fitz, what do we got? I'm like, you kidding me? I'm like, Coach, you got the ball right here. What are you looking to see to start this drive? He goes, man, this is why you play the game. It's just win the next snap. You win the next snap, guess what? You move the chains, get a drive going, get points. We win the football game. It ain't that hard. Let's just go play. I'm like, okay. He's calmer than I was. And Kelly Stauffer is our color analyst, right? Former first-round pick, Seattle Seahawks, out of Colorado State. Kelly says, I haven't spun a ball in 20 years, and I'm ready to pad up for that guy. Because he's that calm, Brad. He's just, again, he will gut you, but do it with a smile on his face, and he is so calm in the moment, and that's why he wins, and he's a people person.
They're the defending champs, and there is a narrative out there that they're going to drop off. They have to because they're moving on from Saban. And so I think that could benefit him a little bit. I want to ask you about LSU. OU's got to go there the final game of the season. If you just look at their numbers last year on defense, I know they made changes. The Vanderbilt is the only thing holding them up from being at the very bottom of the
horrendous.
League. So what has changed? They lost a great quarterback. I don't think Garrett Nussmeier can produce what they did last year with Daniels.
Heisman. Yeah, right.
Are they good enough to be considered?
They're
considered
good
to win the league.
I don't know about win the league, but I think they're a double-digit win type team. A lot of young talent, like Lacey at wide receiver. No one really talks about him because you had BT and Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
They're better at running back than most people think. I think they have arguably the two best tandem, the best tandem at tackle in all of football. Emory Jones on one side and Big Will Campbell on the other. So Will's going to be a first-round draft pick. So you look at the offensive line; it's better than last year. Garrett Nussmeier is Doug Nussmeier's son. For people that don't know, won a national championship as a assistant coach with Saban at Alabama. Knows the SEC. He's been in the NFL for years. Now the quarterback's coach for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
So Garrett has been around ball his entire life. But I had several P5 coaches last year tell me that Garrett Nussmeier could start for a lot of teams in Power 5 football. But he was born in Lake Charles. His mom is a Lake Charles, Louisiana, native. That boot blood just it's in his DNA, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he was never going to transfer. He played a little bit 2 years ago when Jaden Daniels got hurt and actually played pretty well in a couple of those games.
He can spin bowl game. He had a hell of a game. Yeah, you're right. So he can spin it with that offensive line. And look, I just hope, with a new DC coming in, that can we just line Harold Perkins up on the edge and let him see ball, get ball? That dude is a wrecking machine coming off the edge. We don't need him dropping in coverage, right? Just go ahead and send him home. But I'll tell you this, Sooner fans, when you show up to Death Valley, do yourself a favor. Do not wear your school colors. Wear black. Right?
We had Jacob Hester stop by yesterday and said, "Oh no, everything is going to be fine. It's all good."
Where did he play?
Where did he play? No one's
Yeah,
buying it.
yeah.
I don't think anybody's. They still have that 2003 Sugar Bowl, which I think was more a little New Orleans element than true LSU.
Yeah, but wait, hold on.
fan.
It was a quarterback. You guys had a great play design.
Jason White, Keelan Jones.
Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, you slip him right up the seam and you could have punted it down there, and it's a touchdown.
They've been going down the field, running the ball at the end of the game. They kind of had LSU's defense worn out. And then on that play,
It was a great design.
it died. The whole momentum.
Great call.
Yeah.
Just didn't execute it.
Kevin Wilson. made the
Oh,
call.
mercy, son, mercy.
Fitz, thanks for stopping by, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, hit Rafino's for dinner.
Okay. Yeah, no, my bad.
Baton Rouge, hit
Uh-huh.
Rafino's when you go, right? And also Parane's for lunch.
Okay.
There you go.
Jacob said Rafino's also.
Oh, yeah,
Paul
man.
Reen sounds legit, though. That
Redfish.
sounds like
Oh,
straight up
Paul Reens,
Louisiana.
Do yourself a favor. Just walk to the right, go right into the bar. That's how you avoid the line. Belly up, oysters, boys. Hit it.
Those are the-
Jaw-grilled oysters.
Those are the suggestions we're looking for. So
That's the real reason that you had me on. Let's be honest. Good to see you guys.
All right, good to see you too. Thanks.
Thanks,
Ian
Ian.
Fitzsimmons from ESPN. Brad, tell us what's going on back in OKC. Bob Moore Ford.
Bob Moore Ford is ready to get you hooked up for summer vacation. You're taking a trip. You need to take the family in an SUV. They got thousands off and great interest rates on all their SUVs. $12,500 off Explorers, $14,000 off Expeditions, $10,000 off Broncos, and no payments for 90 days. And they have inventory. That's the other thing. Sometimes you hear people talking about these great deals, and then they don't have any inventory. Like, yeah, we would take X amount of dollars off if we had that car on the lot. Bob Moore has plenty of inventory, almost 430 vehicles on the lot and ready to move. If you want a truck, F-150 trucks, $14,000 off. They also have some hail sale deals going right now with minimal hail damage and great prices. So go online and look at the inventory or just come to the dealership. You can check them out online at bobmooreford.com or come in to Bob Moore Ford at Southeast 89th and I-35. Middle of the day show continues for Bob Moore Ford and SEC Media Days after this on 98.1 The Sports Animal and thesportsanimal.com.
A refreshing break, sponsored by Coca-Cola.
oil changes and engines for life on new or used gas or diesel.
Broadcasting sponsored by Parrish Devon Injury Lawyers. Visit pepperwinds.com. That's pepperwinds.com. WWLS-FM, The Village, Oklahoma City, the sports and home of the OKC Thunder, a Cumulus station. This hour is brought to you by Advanced Laser and Cataract Center. If you want to see far and you want to see near, you need to come here.
Let me tell you who's on the program tonight, and then you folks can decide whether you want to stay.
And now, another hour of the Middle of the Day Show with Mark Rodgers and Brad Copeland. Now on 98.1 FM, WWLS, the sports animal.
It is the Middle of the Day Show on Bob Moore Thursday. Brad Copeland at Bob Moore Ford, Southeast 89th and I-35. Mark is at the Omni in Dallas for SEC Media Days. We got one more day being today. Of SEC Media Days. Mark Stoops, I think, is going to join us, hopefully, in a bit, as Kentucky, one of the teams that are speaking today. We had Kentucky and Arkansas. And who are the other two teams, Mark, that are on the roster for today?
Auburn and A&M.
So interesting that you've got
and those are the afternoon teams because we've seen Arkansas and Kentucky players have been pretty prevalent walking through here today.
Interesting that you got two new coaches in the conference, both speaking this afternoon.
Yes, that's right. I mean, and I don't know how they decided who is going to be on what day. I have no idea, but this is the lot that they have drawn. So, yeah, and I think I wouldn't want to go. I mean, to be honest with you, I think I'd want to go early if I was one of these schools. You want to go on Monday or Tuesday where everybody's got the enthusiasm of being here and all of that. And now it's the attrition is starting to get to you a little bit, you know?
Well, yeah,
I'm not sure that my questions are as good today as they were on Monday. You know what I mean?
You were just talking in the last segment about kind of being worn down by the process now. You know, the smart way to do it would be you had Georgia or Alabama or maybe both of them or even Texas be the last team to go to hold that interest over. It's kind of lackluster that you wind up with Auburn.
That idea is maybe good enough to get you to be a deputy commissioner of the league, which would be a good job. I will tell you this about Auburn is Hugh Freeze walked through earlier and there was about 6 gazillion people following him. So, you know, Brad, you lived in Alabama. You know what the Auburn football fans are like. I mean, right?
Well, they're not quite at the same level as Alabama fans, but yes, I absolutely know what they're like. I mean, that is – you think Bedlam is bad. That is a blood rivalry in Alabama between Alabama and Auburn.
I know. I experienced it a little bit on the time that I covered the OU game in Tuscaloosa, and the Alabama had televisions mounted outside the stadium Auburn was playing Georgia Tech in that day, and there were probably 10 to 15 people standing. This is way before the OU game started in the afternoon, standing outside the stadium watching that, actively rooting against Auburn.
I'll put it to you this way. This is how I'll describe it. You don't see any house divided license plates in Alabama.
Right. I know.
As much as OU and OSU fans can dislike each other, there can be that harmony. In Alabama, you just don't see it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it doesn't exist enough that it's a regular occurrence.
I mean, that is a significant rivalry. It is, no doubt.
It's a major rivalry. And listen, I think that, I say this, Auburn has had some good coaches, and for a variety of reasons, it hasn't worked out. I think Hugh Freeze is a really good hire for them. I think there's a lot of really good coaches in the conference this year. And the unfortunate thing is that there are going to be some good coaches that are just going to have a hard time getting breaks because the conference is so strong. But I think that most of the schools, maybe all of the schools that made a hire this year, I think made really good hires. And so you've got a lot of good new talent at the coach position coming into the SEC this year.
I think that's correct. And then there are a couple that, again, they better buckle up and be ready to produce, and where it looks kind of grim for them to do that.
I'm really anxious to see what happens with Florida. I know that Florida fans are really down on Billy Napier. Or not down on is probably not the right term, but they have a very low patience threshold for Billy Napier and what he's done. And frankly, there are some people that I've read commenting online that are just really completely down on Billy Napier and just ready for the change. But he's got his work cut out for him this year.
Tough schedule. And I just disagree a little bit with Cole Kublik. He is a great analyst. He does a really good job. But I don't think that just because you have certain creatures on your team, that means you have an overall winning outfit. I mean, Florida definitely going to have some guys on that team that can play and maybe go to the next level. And, but to start talking about Graham Mertz having a season that's capable of getting them to 7 or 8 wins, I mean, he's not the upper third of quarterbacks in the SEC. Their projection is really, really low in Vegas. So,
well, and if you believe what you hear from some of these same fans, they've got a culture problem. Like there is the want to have a culture at Florida, but it seems like what they actually have right now is not nearly what it needs to be. I think it's better than it was, but I think that Napier has not been the leader that they had hoped that he was going to be coming in there.
It's tough when you hire a guy that the fans don't perceive as your guy,
Yeah. But that's an issue no matter what, I mean, that's what we were talking about with Kellen DeBoer is like, how do you make a guy that was at Washington, who's from South Dakota, going into Alabama? How do you make them feel like he's their guy? Now, I think tagging on to what Ian Fitzsimmons said a minute ago, I think that Coach Saban has done them a lot of favor in the way that he's handled it, that he's continued to be a part of it, that he's sort of thrown cover for DeBoer. But all of that being said, it's one thing in theory to say, well, yeah, it may not be the greatest year, but when that becomes a reality, the feelings sometimes are a little bit different. That's the concern that I have. But again, I'll say, I do think the guy's a hell of a coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just kind of wonder a little bit about what went wrong. I'll tell you, man, they were really, Florida was at the very top of that league. They won the SEC 4 years in a row. I mean, that's Georgia and Alabama have kind of traded back and forth, but I think they're at their best with Spurrier. And if you have a great coach, man, you got a good chance to win.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think they were at their best with Spurrier, but Urban Meyer came in and kept them going, even though it was sketchy.
Right.
It was the culture was way sketchy then, but since Urban Meyer left, they just have not seemed to be able to pull it together.
Yeah, no, they haven't been able to get it done. You're right. Didn't get a chance really to see any of that group yesterday. I'm sorry that we missed them.
Boy, that Oklahoma game, that LSU last game of the season, that is going to be something. Are you going to try and go to that game?
Oh yeah. I'm going.
That's one of those.
I'm going all. I mean, it's my buck. I don't know how much longer I got to be on the ball here, but those are. Let's see, 3 of the 4 road games I've not been to that venue, so I'm getting to all these SEC stadiums, God willing.
So I assume you've been to Tennessee's coming here,
No,
so
I
that
have
wouldn't be
not
one
been
of them
to
anyway.
Tennessee. I did not go to that game.
Oh,
I've
you didn't go to that
I've been
game?
to a couple that you wouldn't have thought. I've been to Kentucky. The big ticket air flew us out to a game there. We got to hang out with Mark Stoops a little bit. I've been to Georgia to see an Oklahoma State game.
Okay.
OSU played them well and then beat them when they were in Stillwater. I have been to Texas to cover some OSU games down there. I've been to Ole Miss. I've been to Mississippi State. Went to Mississippi State LSU game on a Thursday night in Starkville. So,
and you've been to A&M, correct?
A&M,
Columbia.
A&M many times. Been to Missouri many times. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Arkansas.
So which ones are you missing? You're missing Florida. You're missing LSU.
I'm missing Auburn,
Ole Miss,
Florida, LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt.
Okay. Well, listen, Vanderbilt is a terrible football team, but as we talked about earlier, that's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Like you get away from it. My beef with Nashville is not Nashville. It is Broadway. It's the woo-woo girls in the cutoff school buses.
I went to a bachelor party in Nashville, and Broadway is. I mean, it's fun, but after about one night there, you're like, all right, I saw, and conquered.
Well, and consider how much younger than me you are.
Yeah,
the fact that you didn't have the patience for that. I have zero patience.
Madhouse.
Yeah.
There when you're on the street, there's no room to breathe.
It's hard to explain to somebody what that environment is really like if you've not been in the middle of it. Like it's worse. It's worse than Times Square.
What about compared to Bourbon Street in New Orleans?
It's worse.
Really?
It's worse. At least Bourbon Street is more. I don't know what the word would, and I've been on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras, and I still would rather be there than on Broadway in Nashville. That is just the antithesis of what I'm looking for in my life, what goes on Broadway.
It's every rich suburban white girl you can imagine. That's all it is.
And a million school buses with the tops cut off of them with thumping music and woo-woo girls on them. And
cowboy hats.
And you don't have the upshot of the chance to see some boobs in Nashville. I've never been on Broadway in Nashville and seen boobs. New Orleans, it's a given.
Brad, they got those party cowgirl hats that they all wear.
Oh, right.
Brad is out of eligibility for this, but T-Bag, what would be the worst case scenario if you end up with a rich suburban white girl? I mean, the right one.
No, it's not. I just like some culture in my life. I like some diversity, and you're not.
Your rich suburban white girl can enjoy it together.
I mean, Mark, like I said, it's fun for a night, and then after that, you come home and you have a headache from all the woo Nashville.
You can have your rehearsal dinner at Kid Rock's big ass honky tonk and grill.
We were there for 3 nights, and the last night we went to kind of the more local dive bars to enjoy ourselves.
Down there in Vanderbilt, I like hanging out down there, but much better.
T-Bag probably just bumped into the Hawktua girl.
You never know. That's her stomping ground, so it could be.
Yeah, what's her rate?
That is just a messy scene.
It seems like that. She's probably commanding.
I'm sure on Cameo, she's probably about $200 for a happy birthday message.
Yeah. Rich suburban white girl or no? Who do you want screaming at you in an annoying way? No one.
No one. The only thing that I could compare, and it's not at that level, and I'll stress the yet part of it. What's quickly becoming that South Broadway Nashville scene is Austin, Texas. The last time I was in Austin, it had been invaded by those cutoff school buses full of woo-woo girls and just the whole thing. I mean, Austin has, for a city that I have loved as much as I have in my lifetime, it has become almost unbearable for me to go to Austin.
I'll tell you
what's so crowded and so trafficky.
I'll take woo-woo girls all day. I will fade sitting on the interstate and just not moving. I mean,
well, that's the other part of Austin that's horrible.
Yeah. That's the traffic. I don't want any part of the traffic. There's some traffic here, in this part of the world. When I was coming down Monday morning, there was I mean, all kinds of emergency lights on the other side of the highway. I might just be arriving if that would have been in the southbound lane of I-35.
Yeah, there is nothing worse than being on I-35 and looking over and seeing that traffic backed up and knowing that you're going to have to turn around and be right in that coming back if you're going somewhere south for the day.
Yeah, my man PJ Prince is telling me he's going to take me to Knoxville and get the full experience there at Tennessee. I'll go with him. And then a couple of other people want to know, Brad, what do you have against hot chicks?
I don't have anything against hot chicks. I have a problem with, let's see, 15,000 hot chicks crammed into about a half an acre area.
Everyone that's been to Nashville knows what me and Brad are talking about.
100%. 100%. It's not the hot girls that have the problem with it. It's the crowd. And it's the scene. It's just not my scene. You know, there was a time that I probably would have waded right into the middle of that, but it is not for me anymore.
Every bar is the same, too. That's on Broadway.
Tootsies.
Every bar is the same.
You don't like Tootsies?
You know, honestly, Tootsies has still got some of that old charm, that old Nashville charm to it, but it's the same crowd that's going in there. It's not like you go in there and you see a bunch of old Willie Nelson dudes in there listening to music. It is what it is, but it's still that same crowd.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll let the two grouches back in studio cheer each other up and think of something more happy than hot chicks in Nashville. I'm here at SEC Media Days, and again, we're expecting Mark Stoops to stop by. Paul Feinbaum's got a little bit better fit on his pants today. They're buckled up, and he's not having to pull them up, so it's a good deal. And we will return with more coming up after this.
WWLS The Sports Animal is always on. Available on the iHeartRadio app.
Sponsored by Charlie's Car Wash. For a limited time, new members enjoy 55% off any of Charlie's unlimited wash plans. That's right, over half off on the best car wash around. Take advantage of this limited time offer at any of their convenient locations throughout the Midwest. Stop by your nearest Charlie's today.
Hold on to your flip-flops, Oklahoma. David Stanley Chrysler Jeep Dodge is determined to put
The Sports Animal Studios, powered by the OKC Thunder. Sign up for Summer Thunder Youth Basketball Summer Camps, presented by Simple Modern. All campers will receive a ticket to a 24-25 Thunder home game, a basketball, and a Simple Modern water bottle. Register today at OKCThunder.com/summer camps.
It's a Bob Moore Thursday, middle of the day show with Mark and Brad. Mark is at SEC Media Days in Dallas at the Omni. I'm at Bob Moore Ford, Southeast 89th and I-35. Got a couple of segments to go. Looking for some more interviews before we finish things up for the day here. Let's talk a little NFL football, Mark. I mentioned this earlier as something I wanted to talk to you about. I heard you and Matt Ravis talking about Davante Adams earlier. I can't imagine. I mean, I know that Aaron Rodgers wants him, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers can just will something into being. Why in the world would the Raiders let him get away? Like, what is their motivation to want to go out and send him to the Jets? For the very reason I heard you say earlier, if nothing else, they need to sell some jerseys. They need some star power on that team, and he's about what they've got.
I don't know. There could be many things going on behind the scenes. It could be contracts. It could just be organization. It could be the fact that it was 120 degrees in Las Vegas last week and just want a GTFO. I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I mean, and also it just seems like what caused him to want to play with Derek Carr? That's the reason why he wanted to get out of Green Bay. I mean,
he wanted out of Green Bay. And he wanted to get paid. He could be a problem, but it would seem to me that his contract is set, isn't it? Signed a 5-year deal. So wouldn't he have 3 years still left on that?
I think so. I mean, but who knows? Maybe. I mean, it's odd to me that he wanted to not play with Aaron Rodgers, that now he would want to play with Aaron Rodgers again.
Right.
I don't understand the motivation. I mean, it could just be the fact that he's resigned that the Raiders aren't going to be any good. He wants to win, and they're in a division where Patrick Mahomes is in it. It's going to be hard to win. I have no idea.
Brandon,
I think trying to get inside the head of someone like this is we can all come up with some speculation, but it's hard to know.
The Brandon Ayuk situation, I get. Like, he feels disrespected by the organization. He wants out. He wants to get paid. He feels he's at a breaking point with them, and they obviously hold all the cards. I mean, he's come out and said, I want to be traded. They can just knuckle down and say, no, we're not going to trade you. We're not going to let you get away. Then they can franchise him. So, he may not play this year, but they can still turn around and franchise tag him next year. Not that you would necessarily want to do that with a guy that's already disgruntled. But that one I get. The Davante Adams thing, I just don't understand. And I certainly don't understand why the Raiders, aside from him saying, I don't want to be here anymore, would have any motivation to want to try and go work a deal, especially with the Jets, who don't necessarily have a whole lot of resources to want to send back towards Vegas, or at least resources that I would think that they would cut loose of.
I got a little bit of a Woj bomb that's fairly relevant to those listening right now.
What do we got?
All right. Russell Westbrook is expected to agree on a contract buyout with the Utah Jazz. Now, for a moment, that would have been pretty interesting for Russell to go to Utah, where he had some famous incidents, but it will clear the way for him to eventually join the Denver Nuggets after clearing waivers.
I mean, what does that do for the Denver Nuggets? I don't think that means much for them. I mean, I don't know how much playing time they're going to rely on him for, but I mean that. Yes, it's interesting because it's Russell Westbrook, but I just don't know at this point that's a huge story. Like, what's your impression of what that will mean for the Nuggets?
Well, the Nuggets are clearly one of the chief competitors for Oklahoma City in the West. I mean, they're a champion, and they lost some good players off of that team, and so they're gonna want him to play a role on that team. So I don't know. I mean, it will be a great discussion from, for us going on to talk about what Russell Westbrook's doing. So,
well, Sam feels way differently about Russell Westbrook at this point in his career than we do, but I don't know. I don't see that being a big difference maker. I don't see that being a net win for the Nuggets.
Sorry, Brad. We got a guest coming up here. We're going to talk a little Arkansas Razorback football with my man Ty Richardson from Hawk Talk in Arkansas. And I did not hear anything that you just said, so table that for a few minutes. Ty, what's up, man? How you doing?
Mark, doing good, man. We can always talk Oklahoma City Thunder basketball too. Got two Razorbacks on that. That's my favorite team as well.
Isaiah Joe on that team and Jalen Williams. And we're just talking about Russell Westbrook is potentially going to be with the Nuggets next season and what that means. So. Sam Pittman here today, and then it said some of the right things that Arkansas was in 5 one-score games last year. There have been some players come and go in the portal. So what are your expectations?
Yeah, and he referenced the 2 years prior where Arkansas won the majority of those one-score games. I mean, they're going to be right around a French Bowl team. I think that anything north of that is a mighty success. They lost a lot. I mean, when you lose your starting quarterback, your top 2 running backs, your best 2 linebackers, that's a pretty meaty part of your football team. So Arkansas fans are kind of in this mode. It's like, hey, what's going to happen this year? Is there going to be a new coach? Transition's never great when there's realignment, and Arkansas would be much better off if Sam Pittman was retained and stayed on with a successful year with bowl season, because he says that's kind of the floor.
Yeah.
Are the fans going to have the patience for Sam Pittman, though, if things are shaky this year? I mean, it seems like that the fan base is already a little iffy on Sam Pittman. Do you think that he could weather the storm if they don't have a bowl season?
Pat, I really don't, and I've been wrong before many times on Sports Talk Radio, but it's just difficult coming off a 4-8 season. And I think it's a parlay. Like Arkansas basketball didn't make the NCAA tournament, the baseball team under-delivered, and then the football team went 4-8. So, I mean, those are the 3 main sports. Arkansas fans are rabid about all 3. It was just disappointing that, again, your football season kind of started the calendar year per se like they did. But it'll be tough, man. I mean, it's the SEC, and it's got a lot tougher with Oklahoma and Texas.
SEMO winning that baseball regional was one of the more shocking sporting events that I've seen this year. Better at quarterback or worse at quarterback?
Well, you're getting this kid that, I mean, he was a Mountain West, freshman of the year, and he's up and down. His coach got fired. I mean, Taylor shared with that. That was a rocky part for him. He seems to have immediately ingratiated within that locker room, but you're going up against defensive backs that are going to be playing on Sundays 2 or 3 years from now. It's going to take some time. Their first road game is in Auburn, the 4th week of the season. And I say that, their first road game. Their toughest road game might be in Stillwater week 2 in Boone Pickett Stadium, which is just, I mean, on top of having to play Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Tennessee at home, you're going up against one of the most potent offenses in all of college football. 20 returning starters? I mean, that is just brutal for week 2.
That schedule is rough, man. They're going to have to, if they're going to be a bowl-eligible team, they're going to have to really have some things go their way. I wanted to ask you, as a guy that follows the program the way that you do, we were talking about this earlier, and this was the question that I had. Having been in Northwest Arkansas quite a bit over the last few years, it is unbelievable the money that's in that part of the world. Forget about the state, that part of the world. You don't hear people talking about Arkansas the way that they talk about Texas A&M in regards to NIL and desirability of a place for guys to go to. Why is that? Is there not that kind of NIL money? I mean, I'm not necessarily saying at the Texas A&M level, because I think that's next level, but I would think that Arkansas would be a major player when it comes to that, and you don't hear that. And I think that would be a PR boon for Arkansas, for people to know that, hey, there's a place you could go that you can make some money and play on an SEC team and get some exposure. Why do we not hear that about this program?
Pat, it's kind of interesting because it's one of the top 10, 15 fastest growing areas in the country, Northwest Arkansas, which I never thought I'd say. You've got the Hunt family that has been more than generous, the Tyson family that's been more than generous, and the Waldens over the years have as well. But their investments have been more on the landscape in the business school and academics, as well as just kind of architecture and things like that. Not as much in towards football. I know it's Bud Walton Arena, but the newer Waldens have not necessarily attended the University of Arkansas. So there are pockets. There are Fortune 500 companies within the Northwest Arkansas area, but it's not as flush for cash as some make it out to be. I think if you ever unlock the Walden code, which the younger Waldens and they wanted to invest within Arkansas NIL, then you would be just like, there would be an ever-flowing cup. But right now it's not the best. I think that John Calipari coming as the basketball coach unlocked a ton of money for basketball and NIL. Baseball's probably doing well with Dave Van Horn and the facilities and everything, but football still, guys, outside the top 10, and I don't think it's close.
Is there any potential for an Arkansas-Oklahoma rivalry?
Ooh.
Arkansas has Texas as a big rival. LSU played for the Boot Trophy. You also have Ole Miss that has been kind of a rival in the past for a long time, but not much history between the Sooners and the Hogs.
Barry Switzer, the mutual connection. I know one of the things that Coach Switzer used to talk about is when, again, they weren't conference opponents, there wasn't necessarily a reason to play those games. And I think about that, like the combination, and it's like I was just looking up, it's a 4-hour drive, guys. That's the closest proximity with of any school that Arkansas will play. And you think about the softball, 4 straight national championships for Oklahoma. Arkansas's got a growing softball program. The first time they come into Bogle Park, that's going to be nuts. Of course, I've been to Gaylord Memorial once. That's an awesome venue. Arkansas fans will love it. But yeah, it's not going to reach Texas, of course. It's not even probably going to reach Missouri. But it's one that, like, if you're an Arkansas or Oklahoma fan, you make the trip. Like, the Tulsa games have been fun in basketball the last couple of years. I think the same will be said about football, baseball, and when the two go out in softball as well.
Musk got kicked out of 2 of those, and they got kicked out of town.
It's a beautiful area, and it's a beautiful campus. That the stadium sitting up on that hill is great. I've always wanted Oklahoma and Arkansas to have a rivalry, so it'd be nice if we could get that going.
Brad, you'd love it, man. I hope you get a chance to come up. Obviously, you won't play this year or next year in football. Hopefully 2026. I don't care if it's in Norman or Fayetteville. But I think Oklahoma fans listening that haven't made the trek to Northwest Arkansas, they'll probably be surprised. It's funny, you still hear recruits today talk about how, I didn't know this was like this. Not necessarily just Fayetteville itself, but all the growing of Rodgers, Springdale, and surrounding areas. I would equate it to like Edmond in Oklahoma City. Like I've got a bunch of buddies from there and from the OKC area, and it's just insane how those two areas, which are not that far apart, have continued to grow.
All right, I got.
Hey, back me up on this.
Yeah,
back me up on this before Mark asks another question, because this would be my last thing for you. Give Mark a rating on Wright's Barbecue, because I had that the last time I was there, and I was thoroughly smitten
when he went.
Yeah, so you're going to a good barbecue place, guys, when they run out of meat prior to you getting there at a certain hour, and not just brisket, but anything for that matter. Brad is 100% right, Mark. You've got to go. There's plenty of good spots, not just around Oklahoma City, but all over Oklahoma for barbecue. But I'm telling you, I'm not going to say it'll be your favorite, Mark, but you'll enjoy it.
Okay, what about the Catfish Hole?
That's a legendary restaurant. That's where Coach Pittman does his radio show every Wednesday night. It is a place that I used to go to every game weekend as a kid. It's enjoyable. I don't know if you equate it food-wise to Wright's, but it is a historic restaurant for Arkansas, no question.
Okay, I like that. Landon Jackson walking around here. He looks like and Coach Pittman said, we're going to come after the quarterback this year on defense. He looks like he needed a whole lot of help getting back there.
I remember I got a chance to walk by Adrian Peterson one time, and I was just like, that's a football player. Well, Landon walks by all 6'6", 6'7" of them. You're just like, man, that is a guy that you know what sport he plays. He was good last year, leading sack, tackles for loss guy, had 3.5 against Alabama and Tuscaloosa. He'll, again, be maybe a first or second round draft pick this year, and they're going to need every bit of him if Arkansas has any chance to be good on defense this year.
No, you're from Edmond, is that right?
I'm from Little Rock.
Okay.
But I've got
what kind of time who are your friends in Edmond?
I've got Jake Bonsteel. His dad Chuck works in the area. I've got a few others just kind of from Oklahoma City. Thunder fan the majority of my life since basically they came over from the Seattle.
That's awesome. We love having people thunder up with us.
Oh, it's great.
Especially from different areas.
It has grown exponentially, Mark, since Isaiah and Jalen, of course, drafted, Jalen was drafted, but Isaiah picked up, and happy for him. He just signed that 4-year, $48 million contract. So Arkansas fans, you'll notice a lot of them making the trek from Northwest or Western Arkansas to, I guess I used to say Chesapeake. Now it's what, Paycom Arena?
Paycom.
Yeah,
right.
Paycom.
Hey, Ty, is there a more likable guy? I don't know him. I've never interacted with him, but just from a distance, it doesn't seem to me there's a more likable guy than Jay Will.
Yeah, Jalen has had the best smile in college basketball 3 years ago. He led the college in charges. I think he did the same in the NBA last year. If I was him, I would still mess with Chet Holmgren all these years later after they knocked him out of the Sweet 16 game.
Yeah,
but it's like the team, like camaraderie in Oklahoma City. It kind of reminds me, you guys brought up Westbrook as we started. It reminded me of those initial years with OKC where you had Westbrook, Harden, and KD, and they had a budding, growing group around them. I don't know if Shea and Chet and these guys can get to the mountaintop unlike that team did, but it just seems similar to me, to be honest.
Ty, thanks for your time, man. We appreciate it. Always down to talk a little Arkansas sports.
Guys, appreciate having me.
You bet.
Thanks, Ty.
He's host of the Morning Rush